It was a Saturday afternoon in July, and Buckingham Palace stood majestic under a brilliant London sky. The square outside was teeming with tourists, families, photographers, couples, children hoisted on shoulders, all gathered to witness the iconic stillness of the Queen's Guards. Among them stood Private Daniel Whitaker, 29 years old, bearing the red uniform and bearskin cap, with the stoic intensity of a man who understood his role as more than spectacle. 8 years in the military, 2 tours in Helmand, and a decade of training had sculpted him into a silent sentinel. He stood unmoving at his post, eyes forward, expression fixed. But he saw everything. Across the square, a trio of tourists emerged from the crowd. At the front was Logan Pierce, 24, a flashy American influencer with 1.3 million followers on TikTok, and a chip on his shoulder the size of his ego. Beside him, 2 friends trailed with smartphones rolling: Jesse, his eager cameraman, and Liam, the sycophantic hype man. "All right, boys," Logan grinned, adjusting his oversized sunglasses and turning to his camera. "We're about to find out if these Buckingham dudes are actually made of stone, or just hiding behind the rules." The 3 laughed. Jesse zoomed in. Liam gave a thumbs up. "What are you gonna do?" Jesse asked, trying to keep pace as Logan approached the guards. "You'll see," Logan smirked, pulling a branded coffee cup from his bag. "Let's see if the Queen's puppet flinches." Private Whitaker had seen hundreds like them. Tourists with smartphones, yelling in his face, mocking the discipline he held sacred. Most guards ignored it, as trained. Some issued warnings if lines were crossed. But none ever broke formation. What these people never saw, what they didn't understand, was the weight behind the silence. The rifle wasn't decorative, the uniform wasn't a costume, and the man behind it was not a mannequin. He had once carried wounded children through a minefield. He had waited in the dead of night for insurgents to creep toward his position. He had watched comrades fall and stood again at dawn to salute their memory. And now he stood still again, because that was what duty required. Until Logan stepped into the marked boundary. "Oi!" a guard on the opposite side called, a minor breach. But Logan didn't stop. He walked closer. "You can't go past that line, sir," a nearby palace security officer warned, already moving toward him. Logan turned, his grin wider. Jesse was still recording. "Relax," Logan said. "It's just coffee. Watch this." In one swift, stupid motion, Logan flicked the lid off his iced coffee and, with an exaggerated laugh, splashed the cold contents across Private Whitaker's chest and face. The crowd gasped. A mother covered her child's eyes. An elderly man dropped his camera. And every phone within 30 feet was now pointed at the aftermath. Coffee dripped from the guard's red tunic, darkening the fabric. It splashed down his gloves and onto his polished boots. The liquid rolled like tears down the brass buttons. And Private Whitaker didn't move. Not at first. Not a blink, not a twitch. But something shifted in his stance. A microscopic tension in the jaw. A faint shift of weight between heels. Liam laughed nervously. "Yo, Logan! Dude!" The palace security officer reached for his radio. "I repeat," he said, "we've had an assault on duty. Buckingham West Quadrant. Immediate response." Logan turned back to the camera, He's not doing anything. Look, he can't touch me. And then Whitaker moved. Private Whitaker took a single step forward. The motion, though restrained, sent a ripple through the crowd. It wasn't aggression, it was precision, measured, intentional, like the first gear clicking into place in a machine that had long been idling. Logan took a step back, his smile faltering. "Whoa, he moved," Liam muttered, camera trembling in his grip. Whitaker raised a single gloved hand and pointed, not at Logan, but toward the Palace police unit approaching from the rear gate. "Sir," Whitaker said, his voice calm and level, "you have assaulted a serving member of Her Majesty's Guard while on duty. You will remain where you are until authorities arrive." It wasn't a shout, it wasn't angry, but it carried absolute authority, the kind only soldiers understand, the kind that silences men. Logan laughed nervously. "You can't do anything, bro. You're a statue. You're just—" But Whitaker was already moving. In one fluid, coordinated motion, he slung his rifle across his chest and stepped off the post. With each step, the ceremonial soldier transformed into the combat veteran that lay beneath. His eyes locked on Logan's like a sniper locking target. "Private!" came the shout from Captain Grace Maddox, arriving with 2 palace security officers. "Stand down." But she was too late. Whitaker closed the distance in 6 strides. Logan turned to run. Too slow. Whitaker's boots swept behind Logan's legs, sending him down in a humiliating heap on the pavement. The camera skidded across the stones. The crowd gasped again, but this time many cheered. "Hands behind your back," Whitaker ordered, pinning Logan effortlessly to the ground, his knee precisely placed, not brutal, but immovable. Captain Maddox arrived, panting. "Whitaker, report." Suspect made physical contact with a guard on duty. Assault with liquid. Refused to comply. "I made a controlled detainment, ma'am." "And the use of force?" "Minimum necessary. No injuries observed." Logan squirmed. "This is insane! He fucking tackled me!" Whitaker remained silent. Jesse was still filming. Liam stood frozen. Captain Maddox turned to the camera. "You filming? Good. Now you're going to film the arrest, because you're next." Within 20 minutes, clips had already hit social media. The hashtags trended within the hour. Coffee Guard, Buckingham Assault, Respect the Uniform, Logan Pierce cancelled. Multiple angles. Logan's cocky smirk before the throw. The coffee splashing across Whitaker's chest. The takedown. The salute. The speech. Even close-ups of the dripping tunic. One video hit 12 million views in 4 hours. International news outlets picked it up. The BBC, Sky News, CNN, Al Jazeera, even NTV Turkey ran the headline, "Tourist Assaults Queen's Guard, then gets taught a lesson in respect." Tourists who had walked away returned to give statements. The elderly man who had dropped his camera? A World War II veteran. He offered to testify. Inside London's West End police station, Logan sat in a holding cell, his shirt stained with sweat and dust, hands trembling. His phone had been confiscated. His followers were plummeting. Detective Inspector Elaine Masters stepped in. "You know what's fascinating?" she asked, sitting calmly across from him. "The guards can't move unless there's immediate threat. You gave him that threat, and now you're looking at charges for assaulting a uniformed service member, obstructing national security, and inciting public disorder." "It was a prank," Logan murmured. "No, Mr. Pierce. A prank is slipping on a banana peel. What you did was provoke a soldier with a history of PTSD and frontline combat. The only thing saving you from a worse fate is his discipline, not yours." She laid out a folder with printed screenshots of Logan's videos, including previous ones that mocked police, veterans, and border agents. "This wasn't your first attempt at baiting authority, but it might be your last." Back at Buckingham Palace, Whitaker had returned to his post. His tunic had been changed, his posture perfect. But now tourists kept a distance, not out of fear, but respect. Children waved from behind the line. A few saluted. A girl left a handwritten note. "Thank you for protecting the palace. You are a real hero." Across the world, veterans groups praised Whitaker's response. He was invited for interviews, all of which he declined. The regiment preferred silence, dignity, but their official statement read, "Private Whitaker acted with measured restraint and fulfilled his duty with honor." The Queen's Guard is not merely tradition. It is a living institution of discipline, sacrifice, and defense. This incident reminds the world of that truth. A month later, Westminster Magistrates' Court buzzed with anticipation. The case had become a national story. The public gallery was packed with veterans, journalists, and students of law and ethics. Private Whitaker entered through the side entrance in full ceremonial dress. He took the stand with the same precision he'd shown in battle and at Buckingham Palace. His statement was brief, calm, and irrefutable. "I acted within the bounds of protocol and with the intent to minimize escalation while upholding the dignity of the Guard." Logan Pierce, no longer wearing designer sunglasses, looked nothing like the cocky influencer he once portrayed. His lawyer tried to spin the story: misunderstanding, cultural gap, performance art, but the videos spoke louder. So did the silence that fell each time Whitaker's face appeared on screen. The judge, a reserved woman with years of military law experience, addressed the court. "This court does not take lightly the right to protest, expression, or satire. However, none of those rights extend to assault, humiliation, or national provocation." She sentenced Logan to 6 months of community service with veterans programs and a public apology across all platforms, monitored for sincerity. In front of the media, Logan stood behind a podium at the Veterans Association. His voice shook. "I disrespected a tradition I didn't understand. I mocked a man who has done more for his country than I ever considered doing. I am sorry. Not just to Private Whitaker, but to all who serve silently, with dignity." Behind him, Whitaker stood, stone-faced. As Logan finished, he stepped forward. "Regret means little without reflection. If this incident helps even one person understand that service is not a costume, then perhaps some good has come from it. Weeks later, Whitaker stood once again before the gates of Buckingham Palace. The crowd was respectful, quiet. A boy in a small red jacket approached with his father. He saluted. Whitaker returned the gesture ever so slightly. The father's eyes misted. "My brother served. Would have loved to see this. Thank you." Whitaker didn't reply. He didn't need to. His stance said it all. In classrooms, the video was used to teach restraint. In training academies, his response was studied. A museum exhibit dedicated a corner to modern military dignity, with Whitaker's uniform displayed under a plaque that read, "Strength in Stillness." Veterans around the world wrote letters, and Logan, now working with veterans every day, learned stories he never imagined. Whitaker sat alone, reading a letter from an 11-year-old named Charlie. "Dear soldier, I used to think soldiers were only about war. But you showed me being strong means not hurting, but standing. I want to be like you, not famous, just brave." Whitaker folded the letter gently, placed it in his coat, and returned to his post. The crowd watched. The sun broke through the clouds. Stillness, strength, respect. Fade out